Hello, hello.
Yeah.
So good to be here. Thank
Yes.
you. So appreciate you. So I've been getting into the receiving mode more and more, and
Why?
for fun.
Because it feels good.
I like it.
Good.
Yeah. And I've been getting more and more momentum, and then getting to these spaces where the receiving mode, when I'm building momentum, I'm getting nice thoughts that are uplifting to me.
You're not building momentum, you're allowing momentum to build.
Ah, nice. Yeah.
It's natural that it builds, you're just not in the way, so
Yes.
it builds.
Yeah. I'm just
Perfect.
surrendering, and it just
Yeah.
builds and builds. And then I'll get to this point where the moment or the receiving mode will say, what do you want to talk about? And I'll get to actually I'll ask a question, and I'll get an answer kind of like this. And it's not what I would say, so I feel like I'm getting it from my inner being, and so that's been really fun.
Logical assumption.
Makes sense. And then this is recent in the last couple months, and then I would come home and I would engage with some old energies that would throw me, kind of feel like I crashed and burned.
And are you refreshed? Good. Now what? You would think it would be less and less, but it's always more and more.
I've been feeling you calling me here for a couple of months now. And that's how I knew I would be in the hot seat.
Actually, that's not what happened. It was the devil. No. We can make that joke since there isn't any, right? What it is that your desire accumulating and gathering momentum, calling you path of least resistance. And so you just followed that impulse, and here you are, because things are always working out for you.
I've been to 4 workshops, 3 hot seats.
That's way more than your fair share. It must mean you're in alignment and have something that you want to say, but we've used all of your time.
It's okay.
Give us the latest and greatest. Meaning, what's on your mind now?
Okay.
And make it fast.
Okay. You said this phrase, someone else cannot deprive me of what I want.
Now, you are the only one who can ask for it, tune to it, and let it in. No one can keep you from it.
So there's one situation in my life where...
Our answer stands.
What's that?
Our answer stands.
Yeah. I have a curiosity about what I was specifically doing.
Want to do it again?
No.
Then let's not talk about that.
Great. I just really wanted to be here.
We know.
I didn't really have a question.
And you should get everything you want. Yeah. Yeah.
Hello, hello.
Yeah.
So good to be here. Thank
Yes.
you. So appreciate you. So I've been getting into the receiving mode more and more, and
Why?
for fun.
Because it feels good.
I like it.
Good.
Yeah. And I've been getting more and more momentum, and then getting to these spaces where the receiving mode, when I'm building momentum, I'm getting nice thoughts that are uplifting to me.
You're not building momentum, you're allowing momentum to build.
Ah, nice. Yeah.
It's natural that it builds, you're just not in the way, so
Yes.
it builds.
Yeah. I'm just
Perfect.
surrendering, and it just
Yeah.
builds and builds. And then I'll get to this point where the moment or the receiving mode will say, what do you want to talk about? And I'll get to actually I'll ask a question, and I'll get an answer kind of like this. And it's not what I would say, so I feel like I'm getting it from my inner being, and so that's been really fun.
Logical assumption.
Makes sense. And then this is recent in the last couple months, and then I would come home and I would engage with some old energies that would throw me, kind of feel like I crashed and burned, and and then that was off-putting.
You didn't crash and burn, you just introduced sand to the trail, and when you're going that fast, you do crash and burn.
Yeah. And so I spent a lot of time really forcefully trying to fix and clear things. And
How'd that work out?
I've let that go. It's a bad idea.
Yeah.
And so I've been in more of an allowing mode. And so when
How do you orchestrate an allowing mode?
I wake up, I will meditate.
But when you find yourself in that mode where you catch yourself in the act of resistance, what do you do?
So when we were driving down here from Canada, we had a little line at the border, and I got all out of whack because I thought, I should have gone to a different border crossing. And I just stopped, and I kind of tried to just not think about it, quiet my mind. I gave myself a couple of, it looks like we're going to get through on time, it's okay, whatever. And then within 15 minutes, I was back in the receiving mode, and I just sort of tried to not think about it and add positive general things where I could. And
So we have a question for you.
yeah.
Was your decision to focus and breathe and feel better, was it to affect the stopping, or was it because you just really wanted to feel good?
I wanted to feel good, and I wanted to be in the receiving mode to get up here.
But was the decision to get into alignment in order to improve a circumstance?
Improve a feeling. Because we were already in the lineup, we couldn't turn around, there's nothing we could do.
Then what was the negative emotion there to begin with?
It was just, like you said, me being mad at me for choosing the wrong border crossing.
So it didn't have as much to do with the border crossing as it had to do with you being mad at you.
Yeah.
So was the reason that you wanted to come into alignment with who you are in order to fix you being mad with you, or was the reason that you wanted to be in alignment just because it feels better to be in alignment?
Yeah, it just feels better.
Well, we know that you want to think it is that way, and this is the process for sure. But the reason that we're nitpicking here is because almost everyone who's willing to do these dumb tricks we're teaching you is because you want to affect a situation. You want to change something right here and now. Yeah, it's about that. How could it not be about that? That just happened. Don't deny that it happened. It happened, and it sucks. It sucks that you get delayed when you don't want to be delayed. In other words, don't deny that this thing happened, but just pay attention to what you're doing next that then allows the energy to flow. And what you did next did allow the energy to flow. But unless you're doing that for that reason, to allow alignment, why did you do that? Because I wanted to feel good. And it made this happen. Oh, so you didn't do it because you wanted to make that happen? Well, kind of, sort of. But I really did want to feel good. And we want you to, all of you, to get to the point where it's feeling good you're after, and everything else will fall into place. Otherwise, so, for example, Esther's coming across the border like that. And she's got to be here because you all are going to be here. And so she really wants to be here. And she gets delayed. And so it's like hitting a tree going 100 miles an hour, because she would go into strong worry about it. So is she delayed? Yes. Does her inner being know that she's delayed? Yes. Now, what thought comes next is what we're wanting to call your attention to. Her thought might say, I hate these unnecessary border things. Her inner being's not going there. So now she's off and running a little bit, more momentum. Or she might say, I knew we should have left earlier, but so-and-so decided that they didn't want to leave earlier. In other words, assigning motive to the border guards, assigning motive to your incorrect decision, assigning motive to somebody asking for the transportation not with enough notice, somebody getting the wrong transportation. In other words, did all of that happen? Yes, 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 yes. But it's that pushing against thing that is what trips you up. And if you can hear that and just softly let yourself receive what you want to receive, you will be amazed at how much more smoothly your world goes. But we're not teaching this to you because we think you want a smooth world, because you do all kinds of things that are really hard just for fun. When you climb those mountains around here, you don't do it for ease. You do it for exhilaration. And so we're just fine-tuning with you because you are way out there on the leading edge. And a little bit of tweaking when you're moving like you are can make a huge difference in the steadiness of feeling good.
So what really helped me was I heard it, even though I've heard it a few times, I heard your calibration process. And I thought, okay, I'll give that a real shot. And I started to do that when I would encounter a negative emotion that felt like it was kind of older and it wasn't just a passing thing, it was something that had come up over and over again. And I would just take the thing and say, I'm upset about this, and then, but however, in my life, dominantly I feel blah, blah, blah.
We want to give you another example. So, Mark, are these the new projectors or the old ones? Old ones? Several weeks ago, Mark and Esther had a conversation about getting some projectors that were brighter and clearer. And Mark researched it and found them. And Esther said, order them. They cost as much as a car. Depends on your car. But let them know. Find out if they're available, because we want them in a timely manner. And so Mark did that, and Esther felt a little uneasiness about it. Why? Because she's been focused on supply chain shortages. So she's got that going on, stuck in her vibrational craw, and so she has this feeling that they might not come, an opinion, and something in her makes her want to make that opinion right, even though she wants the new projectors to come. You following? So she says, okay, go ahead and order them, but let's make sure that they're going to get here on time. So then they find out that they're not going to get here on time. And Esther's saying to herself in that justifying mode, what good's a guidance system if it doesn't show you stuff that's important? So now she's defending her guidance system. Even though she wants the projectors to come, she's defending, I knew they weren't going to come. Now she's mad at the people who told them they were going to come. Oh, but that's not enough. Now she's really got to double down. I think they knew they weren't going to come. And that's what my guidance system was all about. They knew, and I knew. Are you hearing this? Even though she wants the projectors to come, she's doubling down on them not coming. She's assigning motive to why they didn't make it. And she's holding herself in a vibrational frequency that if something doesn't change, they're never going to get here. Well, Mark's positive thought will get them here eventually, but not without a lot of struggle imposed by Esther, who would rather be right than have the projectors. Are you sort of getting the sense? We're exaggerating it a tiny little bit. And so that's what this new process is, because you're doing it without even knowing you're doing it. And in this case, it was some company, in other words, supply chain is sort of slowed down. There are some things that you can't get, but it is the demonizing of it or the trying to point fingers at it that makes you be a perpetuator of what you don't want, a protester against what you don't want instead of an advocate for what you do want. That's really the easiest way to hear it. Did you hear it?
So what I'm wondering is, with everything that I'm doing, what else can I either add in, or should I do less of? Like, should I try and calibrate most things that happen that seem to have strong momentum and
Be as
resistance?
specific as you can be and still feel good. and keep the emphasis as you are keeping it on releasing resistance when you're aware that you have it. And this is the new piece for you. That's why we gave it to you with such emphasis, because you're a teacher. You want to get it right. You want to show off your skills at being a good teacher. Everybody who's a good teacher wants to do that, but it's got to be all right with you that you're teaching calibration in real time.
What I'm noticing is that when I was sitting in the chair and something would come up that felt like an old energy that that felt like something negative, my instinct was, because I was already feeling so good and being here, and because I wanted to stay in the vortex, my instinct was just to completely ignore it and just not give it any attention.
Well, let's talk about something here first. Every subject is two subjects. So when you really feel good, the other end of the stick is activated about sometimes you haven't felt good. In other words, it's just all part of it. So don't make a big thing about that. You're kind of making a big thing about that in your wanting to discern it and in your wanting to define it. Don't make a big thing about it. In every moment that you want something, what you don't want is in the vicinity somewhere, because you can't even know what you do want without knowing what you don't want. So there's this constant thing that you are synthesizing, that's moving, it's dynamic all the time, and you just want to lean in the direction of what you want. And the more you do that, the easier it is to do that. That is the easiest way to define that. There's no right or wrong, and you're still hung up on that. You want to be a deliberate creator, and you don't want to create by default, and you want to be on the upper half of the emotional scale, and you don't want to be on the lower half of the scale. And we want it to be all right with you whether you're on the upper half or the lower half, whether you're in step 1 or step 3, because you're figuring it all out just like you intended to do, and nothing's going wrong here. Working out for you. And isn't it logical that someone with big intentions, big dreams, strong determination to be a deliberate creator, isn't it logical that you would turn up the heat a little bit and define things in a little stronger way and give yourself more opportunities to come into that place of things being all right? Because if there's anything that is beneficial for you to know and teach, it's that unconditional love means I like myself no matter what condition I'm standing in. And I'm less and less likely to demonize the condition too.
And that's what happened. Is I spent the first day thinking, gosh, like this stuff hasn't happened to me for a long time, and what's the lesson? What am I supposed to learn? And I felt very frustrated, and it kind of came to me through a crack of momentary saneness, and I just got that this was about me learning to be unconditional and to not let the conditions affect me, and things happen and it's okay. And as soon as I thought that, my whole rest of the trip was amazing. Normal. It was perfect.
And that nothing's going wrong.
Yeah, it was fine. It was fine.
So Esther has a friend who moved to Colorado. She and her partner purchased a ski lodge that was for cross-country skiing, flatland, not surrounded by, but on two sides, national forest. And Jerry and Esther went to visit them. And she said, there's so much to be afraid of up here. I had to give some of it up. And Esther remembers feeling that sort of release of struggle in her when she said that. Well, you all are living in exaggerated times, not exaggerated times of stuff that you don't want happening with more proliferation. We don't mean that. Exaggerated in that there are more eyes on it and more people talking about it. There have been far other times in your history. There were far more treacherous feeling places that you were standing. But never before have there been so many people focused upon things that they don't want. And as a result of that, think about what that means. Can you feel with us the enormity of your vortices or of your collective consciousness vortex, with all that knowing what I don't want, all that attention to what I don't want? And what's really interesting about it is it's people on different sides of every issue, all knowing what they don't want and launching rockets of desires about what they do want. And every one of those reasons that they want what they want, even though they oppose each other on all those subjects, every single reason for what they think they want or what they do want is because they believe they would feel better in it. So think about this vortex, this collective conscious vortex, and the summoning of feeling better that is there for planet Earth. And now notice, if you can, all those billions, can't find the right number, of inner beings that are focused there on the solutions and on the true root asking, and feel the calling of source energy summoning everyone to their satisfaction, to their in-loveness, to their appreciation, to their well-being. So you get all of that, but this is the piece that you're introducing into this conversation that is so important. It's the tipping point. It's the letting go. It's the, there's so many things to worry about, I'm exhausted. There's so many things to worry about, I'm just not going to focus on it. I'm just going to let it go, because I'm starting to understand I can't fix that, and I can't fix that, and I can't fix that. Hear this. You may not like these words, but we're going to say them anyway. No one can save you. No one can save you, because first of all, you're not broken and you don't need to be saved, but most important, you are the attractor of your own experience. And so there are 2 points that we're really wanting to help you to feel. One is, give up the battle of trying to find somebody to swoop in and figure it out, and stop demonizing them when they don't, because it was never their job and the universe doesn't allow it. Law of attraction doesn't work that way. You cannot get someone to save you. You have created a vortex, a collective consciousness vortex, and your source energy is all over it, and well-being is being gathered in abundance and in proportion and in ways that we can't even define, in a way that your ears can hear it. And all you have to do as an individual, all you can do as an individual, is stop pushing against and demonizing someone, yourself or someone else, and step into that attitude of love, and let the well-being that you collectively want and that you collectively deserve be dominant for a while. And that's what a paradigm shift is. That's what you're upon. That really is what you all said you wanted when you came. You said, I'll go, and like others, I'll mix it up, I'll mess it up, I'll push and I'll pull, but most of all, I'll decide. And what are you deciding? Not that that's right or that's wrong, or that I'm right and you're wrong. What you're deciding is, this feels good to me, and feeling good to me is what I prefer. Love feels so much better than hate. I choose love at every level of my being. And yet in your demonization and trying to fix things, there are so many who are in an attitude of hate, pushing against what they do not want, with a total misunderstanding. They think if they can push hard enough against what they think they do not want, that they will be left in the absence of that. Law of attraction does not work that way. There's no assertion, there's just attraction, you see. Just your attraction. Doesn't have to do with the border guards, doesn't have to do with whoever is sending or not sending the projector when Esther wants it, doesn't have to do with anything that you think that it has to do with. It has only to do with your deciding that you want it, and you finding a way to let in what you want. If you really believed us, you'd clap your hands and say, I got it, and you'd all leave.
Can I ask another question?
Is it pointed and ready and on the heels of what we've just been talking about?
Yep.
Let us have it.
Okay. So we've got a company, and we've raised money a couple times from investors. And the energy with which we raised that money was pure vision and excitement and fun, and just being in the creativity of it and the vision of it. And
so you're telling us that there was no lower half of the emotional scale?
Oh, there probably was. It just felt like the majority of our time was spent in the vision of the big future and why it's going to be valuable. And
we can hear you getting to a but. What is it?
No, but I guess as the business went from an idea to a reality, and as we had tasks and things that we could do.
Well, when you were raising the money, that was part of the reality too.
Definitely. And so I guess I'm just wondering if you have any suggestions for other ways of getting into alignment when there's that the business is running and there's lots of things to do, but maintaining that connection. And recently
Well,
I've
you've
just
asked the question about life.
Yeah.
How do I stay connected when there are circumstances that are trending as a result of how I've been trending that are not pleasing me? How do I stand in a place of seeing something that's different than what I want and stay focused upon what I do want? That's the story that we've just been giving you about the projectors aren't here, and Esther couldn't get her mind off the fact that the projectors weren't here. They weren't going to be on time. They weren't going to be on time, and then they said they'd ship them to a future hotel. Well, you know what that did to Esther. Oh yeah, that's going to happen with ease. We're a moving target. We're a moving target. And your timeliness is not your best attribute. And so, are you going to ship them to a hotel just as we zoom away? You get what we're talking about. Esther is rational and reasonable and right about hotels operate. That's how they operate. She and Jerry used to come to the hotel having sent a whole pile of stuff, and the person at the front desk would say, no, you don't have any packages. And Esther would say, yeah, they're there. No, they're not there. So they started tracking them, and then Esther would show up at the front desk with tracking numbers and the person who had signed for them. And then they were often more inspired to go find the packages. So Esther has an attitude based upon past experience that is valid, that says people at hotels do not care about your packages. So when Mark says that this already delinquent projector sending company has another plan that dovetails with another thing that never works out, her determination to be right, we're making her look a little different than she really is in this. In other words, isn't it logical that your life experience, we were talking about that earlier, your life experience causes you to come to conclusions, decisions that you pass on sometimes from generation to generation that have nothing to do with what you want or what you have evolved to in your vortex, but your worldwide sort of determination to be right about something, to face the facts, to face reality, prevent you from feeling what's coming rather than what is. And that's what you're talking about. How do I not notice what is? And the reason I notice what is because I've lived it before. How do I change my reality? Well, it starts by throwing your yearbook away.
I've just been spending a lot of time like going for long drives and walks in purely the receiving mode and doing less work.
So are you saying to us that you know that you have a vortex version?
Yeah.
And that you know that your inner being's all over it, and that the most powerful part, the most powerful piece, the most powerful component of your creation is the part that's in the vortex that your inner being is tending, and all of the summoning of cooperative components. So are you saying to us that you got it going on?
Yeah.
And now if you could explain yourself and Esther, why would either one of you hold doggedly to a little piece of your reality that isn't pleasing you right this minute? Because you've trained yourself to believe that what is everything, and it's not. It's just the bouncing off part. What is isn't where it's at. What's becoming is where it's at. And so who cares where it's been? Every bit of that up and down and that feeling good and that not feeling good, all has caused you to fine tune and to ask with more clarity and to create a business that's more pleasing to you from more directions and more aspects. It's better now than it's ever been, and it's in the process of flowing into your experience. And you're right. Your answer was exactly right. I'm just doing my best to chill and enjoy, but we want to add to that the powerful word, expect. And that's what all of these conversations are about. When you know the laws of the universe, law of attraction, no assertion, that's basically it. It's simple. And you know that you're an extension of source energy, and that source energy is always conspiring for you. And you know that all of the cooperative components are being gathered, whether you can see them yet or not. In other words, whether your eyes can see them or your ears can hear them. In other words, they exist in that vibrational reality. They exist. When you know that they exist, why? Because Abraham said so. Oh, I want to believe it. I want to believe it. Abraham seems so sure about it.
Well, I know they exist because they happened before, and because every time I'm in the vortex,
There's
I hear
evidence of it all the time. And so I'm showing myself in real life, and I'm making the correlation between how I felt when that came and how I felt when that didn't come. And I'm aware of when I'm on the upper half of the scale and the lower half of the scale. And even best of all, I know what to do about it. And I'm catching myself when I'm dug in on something and it really starts to show separation because my negative emotion gets stronger, and I'm noticing that every time it's because I'm assigning motive and pushing against someone. Might be me, might be someone else, instead of trusting my own worthiness and my own ability to receive.
So you're saying and if it feels better to do a calibration, do it. If it feels better to ignore it, do it. But it doesn't matter what the process is, just try and just path of least resistance around the issue. That feels easier.
Perfect words. Perfect words. Really good. Really, really good.
I really want to dance with a lot of quick questions and quick answers. Feels so good.
They might be quick. They'll be the answer that gives the most people the resonance that they're looking for.
This might be the first time that I do not want to know the details of my desire as I'm sensing its creation.
Well, the details are most enjoyed as they manifest. The details are enjoyed in the step one moments. Those are details. And then the details are really enjoyed as they manifest. But you're right. General is better in the process of allowing it to be.
Yes.
You get that? Did you understand that?
What happens? So I've been looking for words to describe what happened. I understand being a satellite dish for source energy for the clients and people I'm working with. I understand
Just an amplifier of what they want. Yeah. Someone who sees what they're not ready to see yet and talks about it with an understanding that you're seeing it and talking about it might get them closer, maybe. Especially if you see it. If you really see it, if you're really tuned to it.
So I know how...
If you have no split energy,
yes,
they're more likely to see it. If you are seeing that they're not seeing it, and so then you're offering it so that they'll see it, you've got split energy, and then they're probably not going to see it.
Split energy, when it happens,
is always your perspective being different from your inner beings.
So I love the sense of holding unwavering presence and the frequency of the steadiness of the change.
Really good.
And I love seeing the outcomes that can be switched within, as you said, generational context, within moments, ancestral.
We know you like that, and we like you to like that, and we talk a lot about that. But let it be more about, I love how I feel. Because when you love, when you see the outcome, now you've put yourself in a compromised position if you're not. And then you're back to square one, where most conditional creators are, where if they see it, they feel good, and if they don't,
Goes back to the consistency of being satellite dish and amplifier and being satisfied with the movement you observe rather than the outcome.
The process of alignment. Because if you focus on the process of alignment and the achievement of alignment, the outcome is inevitable. It cannot be any other way. But if you're focused upon the outcome, sometimes it keeps you from achieving the process.
You talked about the worthiness, and I've heard it for the first time in this way. It's always been on this side. I've seen it from the other side. In other words, this sense of eagerness to come in and play, the sense of worthiness of
proving worthiness rather than already being worthy. We put words in your mouth. We really do want to hear what you mean.
here's that sensation now that I'm looking words for. It's, you say,
For just a little bit,
Yeah.
rather than calling it worthiness, just call it alignment or something close to it. Because when you are really in alignment, there's no question about how blessed you are. But when you're trying to prove it or be it, then you're usually not it. That's where we started today.
yeah,
Here it is. We were talking about doubling down, using Esther as an example, doubling down on wanting to explain her rightness. And that comes from believing, a lot of you do it as you come through your physical life experience, that there's someone outside of you watching you and evaluating you and assigning motives and rewards, and that just does not exist. And so worthiness is hard to hear for most people because they keep putting in the equation something that doesn't exist, which is someone that is observing and assigning the judgment, the worthiness or the not worthiness, when really all that is going on is the harmony or not harmony with your own expanded self. That's why billions of people can be on the planet all wanting and experiencing different things, and none of their inner beings are standing in a panel of judgment. There is no chorus of inner beings trying to make movements out of physical beings, because your diversity and your differences is understood to be of such value. But the whole chorus of non-physical is conspiring for 100% of your happiness, 100% of you feeling worthy. Now that twists human brains into a knot. We are so different and we want different things. How can our inner beings want us all to get what we want? Because there's a whole lot of them. I don't want to get what I think they want. That's where it goes south for everyone. And that's why humans keep doing their best to separate other humans, put them on a reservation, put them in an encampment, put them on an island, make them cease to exist. They're in my way. No, they're not. The only thing that's in Esther's way is her old thoughts about supply chain, because the supply chain is cooperating with her expectation.
let's talk for a second about this mutual dance and service between physical and non-physical, this equality in mutual expression. Because oftentimes I feel that trips quite a lot of us. This whole thing, well, here comes something or someone always has my back, and it's easy sometimes to go in that direction, that I'm just dialing in for something to come.
We know it takes some practice to believe that the conspiracy is working for you, not against you. Because when something's not working out for you, your logical mind says, I want it, why isn't it coming? Someone must be preventing me from it. And so that's when you get into all those conspiracy theories about how someone is keeping you from what you want, and it's never ever true. It's never the case. But your perceptions matter a lot. What you think, you offer a vibration about it, and it just keeps repeating to you. And then you say, the thing you fear proves itself to you so that you know that you're right in your fear. But every time you have fear, you're out of focus from your inner being. Doesn't matter, you'll croak and you'll get right back into focus. We just don't think you should have to reemerge into non-physical in order to align with the mastery that's you, to the magnificence that is you, to the oneness that is you, to the giving yourself a break and relaxing. It's humans' competitive nature, and they're wanting someone to settle the score. So let's take it all the way to the Supreme Court. Let them settle the score. And then you say, or not, or not. Esther's calling them the inferior court. They don't feel so supreme to her anymore. But she was asking something of them that no one should ever ask of anyone. She was asking them to have the wisdom to evaluate all of the big issues and make the right decision. Come on. This is a diverse universe where you get to individually create. There's not one right answer. And when you look for it, either you're going to be miserable all the time you're looking, or you're going to live a very narrow life where only a handful of people that are narrow like you are over there saying the same things.
Or we can see it from various angles, infinite angles.
Enough?
Enough.
Really good. Really good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There's a lot that got inspired within me during the conversations that we had today. Some questions that I even forgot that I had, and another story from my childhood.
You want it to happen again?
Yeah.
If you do, tell it. If you don't, let's move on.
So when I was young, I had a bad habit of suckling my thumb, and it proceeded to, like, when I was older, past the acceptable age, and my parents said, if you quit, he will give you anything that you want. And it was like a really, like a crutch that I was like self-soothing every night. And so
Before you go further,
Yeah.
we want to hear it. So your parents were doing what so many people who are teaching you do. They're wanting you to calibrate to their desire for you. They've decided what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And they're not thinking about the soothing, because hardly anybody understands the value of self-soothing. And so that's how people learn to calibrate to what other humans want, by seeing the rewards that are being offered at pleasing them rather than following your own sense of soothing. That was such a good example in the way you laid it out, that really good opportunity to see how easy it is to replace your own guidance system with what others want you to do.
I think I saw their point. Like, I wanted to quit, but it was kind of like such a strong pull that it was like similar to like people smoking, you know, that like it was such a bad crutch. But anyways, they told me that I could have whatever I wanted, and I wanted a cat so badly. And so every night I would go to bed and thinking about playing with this kitten instead of suckling on my thumb. And I made it to like 10 days, and I broke the habit. And that's when we realized that we're moving to Canada, and I couldn't have my cat. And then when we moved into a pet-free building. And not only that, I had a cat allergy. But imagine for like a week, I was focused on just this, like playing with this
This story sounds like it's got some good stuff in it.
It does.
But it's also got some stuff in it that you carry with you for a long time, and something that your inner being really wants you to focus on, and that is, you can't count on anybody. Take it easy. They couldn't even keep the promise. They were well-meaning.
But even like, because I realized that like I had this cat allergy, I was like, oh no, I will not, even like when I move out, will I be able to have a cat? Until I was in my 30s, and I found out that there's such a thing as immunotherapy for allergies, and I could have shots and I could get my cat.
But you see, this is such a complicated story.
But for me,
And it has so many twists and turns in it, as you're doing what Esther is doing in trying to make the story fit with the conclusion that you've come to.
okay.
In other words, instead of soothing yourself, you let them trick you. Take it easy. And then you tricked yourself into not even be able to get a cat for a while because you moved. And then the unfairness continued still further. In other words, we're just saying that what we want you to take away from that is that it was always in your power to soothe yourself, either by suckling your thumb or having a cat. But when somehow you've been convinced that it's wrong to soothe is what you took away from that, which meant even the promise that they gave you that was going to replace that couldn't come to you because it's wrong to soothe. We know you haven't looked at it that way before.
No, I always saw it that like that I wasn't focusing on the circumstances of the reality. I was literally just going to bed and thinking about my cat.
So thinking about the cat was soothing. So you soothed yourself with the thought of something.
Visualizing.
What happened when you realized, how did you feel, and for how long did you feel when you realized that you were going to move so you couldn't get the cat? What happened then? Can you remember that part of the story?
They told me that we can get a cat in Canada.
So
but
then
that
what
was not
happened when you
true.
got to Canada? In other words, this is the story that others who are trying to get you to calibrate to them always tell you. They tell you, if you keep these rules, you'll be blessed. And if you break these rules, you'll be punished. And then when you watch with your own eyes, it not turning out the way they all say it's going to be, then they say, oh, you can't tell in this lifetime. You have to wait until the afterlife. So when you croak, you'll get your cat, so to speak. You have lovely parents, and we're not pushing against them at all, but this was such a wonderful opportunity to demonstrate how, because it's a big question in the room. We hear it all the time, whether you speak it or just offer it to us with your thoughts. Abraham, if this is all so easy, why aren't we all just having an easier time of it? If we were pure positive energy before we came into these bodies, why isn't it easier to accept our guidance system and follow it? And the answer to that question, the most often is biggest asked question of all, the answer to that question is because you have learned by the strength and intensity of those who surround you, who seek to control an environment. They don't want you to be past the, what were the words you used? The appropriate age? Past the appropriate age. The appropriate age. The appropriate age. That falls back on inappropriate parents. Don't you think that's what they thought? In other words, we need you to do something different so that we can be. And so where does that chain of pain start? It starts with not understanding, not resonating, not calibrating to the source within you. So we never let anybody get too far down the rabbit hole telling us a story about something that is full of false premises without coming back to this whole story is about how you came to know about your own guidance system, and that soothing is the name of the game. Isn't this interesting? This whole thing started with you just wanting to do what all these years later we're begging you, not really, to do. We think that's a fascinating unfolding. Maybe the best conversation we've ever had.
I have one more question. So you say that when we're happy, we're in alignment. Would that be a true statement?
Well, it's variable, and what's happy to one may not be happy to another. It's all relative. So how would you define, or how would you find a word that says when you feel some relief and you feel a little better, that's moving in the direction? In other words, we can't even find the ultimate alignment. We use the word love because it's the purest vibrational state of being that you use with a word to define it. But so many people use the word love and they're nowhere near the vibrational frequency of it when they use it. We really like the word appreciation because it's usually cleaner when you're appreciating something that's such a close vibrational proximity to love. But there are people that will say, I'm happy, when they're really not happy by your standards, but they're happy by their standards. Everything's relative to what they're reaching for. That's why your guidance systems are not across the board. Your guidance system is the calibration, it's the variance, it's the blending or not, it's the allowing or resisting of your frequency as it relates to the frequency of your inner being.
So when people take drugs, either pharmaceutical or recreational, and they feel happy, would you say that that's like fake alignment, or is it like partial
What we would really
alignment?
say is that you cannot determine the happiness of another, because you really can't know how they felt before they did or how they felt when they do. You only know it for yourself. And so if you're asking the question, then you know the answer.
It depends on the person.
We would say that a feeling of relief is on the path to happiness. And so if someone's really in a place of so much tension and having trended so long in calibration against their alignment, then sometimes, like going to sleep or like meditating, anything that distracts you from focusing can give you that relief, because in the de-emphasis of being able to focus, which is mostly what most drugs like that do, then there is a release of tension, because you're not consciously or in a really definitive way contradicting what your inner being knows to be. And so when you let go of that, then you come into alignment. But it's not lasting, because it's not a trending that you practice deliberately.
And the side effects are the resistance squirting
Side
through.
effects often produce more things to push against. There isn't anything that replaces your emotional guidance system and your decision to find a thought that feels better, find a thought that feels better, find a thought that feels better, find a thought that feels better. And if you can't find a thought that feels better, and Esther couldn't find a thought that felt better about those projectors. She had too much momentum going. She needed to be right about her theory, which means she cared more about being right than she did about feeling good. Well, if you've got yourself in one of those quagmires, then drugs might be the answer in the moment, or a nap, or meditating, or launching another rocket of desire, or remembering how the universe works. We never stop talking about another way that you can feel a little better. Ask in It Is Given book has 22 processes in it, and we've offered several since then, and every process without exception is to assist you in releasing some resistance, because we know for sure if your cork is floating, which means you have non-resistance, that's what we call pure positive emotion. That's where love and exhilaration and appreciation are. You can hold that cork under the water, and let's call that negative emotion. Let's call it resistance. But when you stop doing that thing you're doing that is holding the cork under the water, it will bob right back to the surface. There's no process that we teach you that says you're going to push the cork back up to the surface, because it will naturally go if you're not doing that thing. So maybe the drugs cause you, someone, to defocus and therefore de-emphasize, and for a period of time deactivate the thought that was holding the cork under the water. But since it wasn't something that was consciously acknowledged, when you think a thought and you notice that you feel this way, and you think a thought and you notice you feel this way, and you deliberately pay attention and practice contouring your thoughts, not to fix things, but for the singular reason that it just feels better, which is the reason that people do drugs. Nobody says, I'm going to go get addicted to something that's going to cost me a lot of money and maybe put me in jail. That's not the reason that anybody does it. Everybody does it because they believe in the doing of it that they will feel better. That's what we're talking about. You're trying to find some way to feel better. And the drugs aren't wrong. It might have been the path of least resistance. It just isn't sustaining, and after a while, you sort of figure that out. Sort of like you figured out that you had a method that was soothing you, and somebody said, shouldn't take that drug. Get that drug out of your mouth. Get it out of your mouth now. I'll give you a cat if you'll take that drug out of your mouth. So you said, okay, where's the cat? Well, it'll be a little while. No, really, take that drug out of your mouth. We'll give you a cat as soon as we get to Canada. Where's the cat? Well, it's gonna be a little while. Pretty clear, huh? Really good time for a segment of aggression.